You're listening to Let's Talk Fantasy Football, where men of fantasy genius have realized, hey guys, we don't need real football skills to dominate on the fantasy field. Yeah. So slap on your pads and grab your helmet. Shit's about to get real.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to another edition of Let's Talk Fantasy Football. I am your host, Nick Schreck, and that is it, guys. A solo act as we go into, for some of you, what may be the second round of the playoffs. For some of you, it may be the first week of the playoffs. But most importantly, guys, it's playoff week, and we've decided to scrap the recap podcast this week and go for a solo Thursday night preview, talk about some injuries, because at this point, guys, if you are in the playoffs, you're focused on winning. It is this week, do or die, before we focus on next week. And you're not super concerned with what happened last week, right? Great to know, important, but it either got you into the playoffs or let you advance or you didn't. And now it's time to focus on the most important pieces that we have moving forward. So with that, guys, I'm going to cover the Thursday night game. We get the Baltimore Ravens, the New York Jets. Some fantasy value there, some injuries. We're going to talk a little bit about injury news. It's going to be a quick podcast for you guys. And then that's it. We're going to set you guys free, get you ready with the full preview podcast coming out for you guys on Friday and Saturday this week. So we'll have you ready for the games. We will make sure that you guys are ready for the fantasy playoffs. And hopefully we get you that big win, get you to the championship game next week. But before we can get there, we got to start with Thursday Night Football, guys. The New York Jets are traveling to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. The Ravens are huge, huge favorites. The line on the game depends on where you look, where you may bet. We're talking somewhere 15 to 17.5 point favorites for the Ravens. We've had some movement. We got Lamar Jackson, obviously, limited with a quad injury. So, obviously, he's questionable, but we expect him to play, right? So, he's a little banged up. He is going to play, and assuming he is active, which is what we expect, he's in your fantasy lineup. He's been a stud. You're not going to start to play around with that in the fantasy playoffs. So he's in your lineup. Obviously, he's a little banged up. It stinks, but it is what it is. There's really nothing you can do about it, guys. But despite being officially questionable, at least at this point in time, we expect him to be active. He's going to be in your lineup. You look at the rest of the team, guys. Mark Ingram, I think you can play with confidence, right? He is somewhat of a game script guy, but in a game where they are favored by so much, they're expected to get up quickly. They're going to run the ball. Very easily could turn into a possible multi-touchdown game here, given the score, the game script. So Mark Ingram, if you have him, if you've been playing him and you're in that position, I think there's no reason you can't play him and roll him out again here as we play for the fantasy playoffs. The receiving game, I think, is the biggest question mark, right? Because you look at the options, and I think we'll start here with Mark Andrews, right? Because I think he's the most prolific and really arguably the only fantasy relevant guy that I have confidence in as we're in the playoffs here. Depends on your options, but Mark Andrews, guys, he's listed as questionable. He gets knocked out of last week's game. He's had 2 limited practices. He did not practice Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. He was limited. Going to be a game time decision. So you need to make sure you have an alternative option, or you've at least looked at the waiver wire and you're prepared to make a move if he is inactive. But if you own him, make sure you are prepped for the Thursday night game to be ready to swap him out pending bad news. I do expect him to go at this point in time. Again, a lot can change by the time the Thursday night game is here. But keep it in mind, I do expect him to play. And I think you can still play him, right? I mean, if he's active, I don't know how you don't. He's been so involved for you. Tight end can be such a crapshoot, right? Tight end roulette, spin the fucking wheel. I just don't think I can move away from Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, again, assuming his health. He's out there with confidence for me. He has carried you, and if he is active, he is back in my lineup. So take that for what it is. It is definitely a gamble. There's no question. And I just don't think you're going to have a better option or something you have any more confidence in. So if you're going to roll the dice, why not roll it with Mark Andrews? And that's there's no statistical backing to that, guys. It's just the reality of the situation that we're in. So I think you can do that with confidence, and I really wouldn't sweat it one bit. As far as the rest of the receivers, guys, I'm torn, right? Marquise Brown, well, he's really the only other relevant receiver. 1, 2, the problem becomes it's a good matchup, right? He gets the Jets, but he's struggled as of late. So do you have the confidence that him and Lamar Jackson are going to get on the same page? They're going to get it right here against the Jets? Or is he going to continue to struggle as we've seen him do somewhat lately? I'm just pulling up his stats, as we kind of talk through them. I really think it comes down to what you expect him to see. He went 3 for 3 for -2 yards against the Bills. I'm worried about the 0-point floor. He's probably looking at my bench, but again, it depends on your options. He's probably like a super low wide receiver 3 for me, maybe a high 4. But you have to understand that you could have a game like they just had against the Bills. It's possible, and there's no other confidence in any other Raven here for me. So it's Lamar Jackson's a start. Mark Andrews probably a low tight end 1 with that injury, but I expect him to go. And Mark Ingram. Those are the 3 in your lineup, and really I'm wasting my breath and wasting your time on anybody else. On the flip side of the ball, guys, we'll talk about the Jets. Sam Darnold, who has kind of been making things happen. I mean, he put up a dud against Cincinnati's bad secondary. He was okay against the Dolphins. The Ravens are just so much better. And after putting up good games against the Giants, Raiders, the Redskins, whatever, we get this rush here in the fantasy playoffs, so back to reality. Sam Darnold, I think, is going to be just fine for the Jets in the future, but this is not a matchup that you're playing him in the fantasy playoffs. I hope you have an alternative option ready. If you don't, DM us, tweet us, whatever. We're happy to take a look at the options you do have available, but I would begin looking at another option. The Ravens are not the one you want to go into the playoffs with. So the secondary is just really good, guys. That's really what it comes back to. Le'Veon Bell, he was out with the illness. He was bowling in Boonton on Saturday night, Boonton, New Jersey. For those of you in Jersey, shout out. Does not look great look. I don't know if there's been a comment back from the Jets on that whole scenario there, but unfortunately, Le'Veon Bell's been a bit of a disappointment. I mean, quite frankly, he's been a letdown for fantasy owners for where he was drafted. You would hope that they would try and get a ground game going against the Ravens because I don't expect the Jets to do it through the air. Unfortunately, I just don't know that they could do it with that offensive line. The offensive line is not great. I just don't have a ton of confidence that they're going to be able to do that. So I'm probably looking elsewhere. Again, that depends on your options and what else you have going, but I'm okay if you're going to bench Le'Veon Bell here. It's a tough matchup. You got to do what you got to do. Last week, guys, I talked about Jamison Crowder in the passing game, and I was just wrong. I expected that to kind of pan out, and it's not going to happen here. He's probably going to draw Marlon Humphreys in the slot. Crowder's got 7 catches in 3 games. He's not even startable. Darnold's off the streaming radar, and that really leaves you with Robbie Anderson, right? Robbie Anderson goes 7 of 11 for 116 and a touchdown over the Dolphins. Obviously a good matchup. It's his second straight with 100 yards. It's going to be a test, right? Because the secondary is very, very good here. But again, if that's what you got to do, I don't have a problem rolling him out there. I just think you have to understand that things can go the wrong way for you, unfortunately. So you have to know the risk if you're going to roll with Robbie Anderson. Again, I played him in DFS last week. It worked out. I also owned a bunch of Jamison Crowder, and I was wrong. They just, I don't know. I don't feel great. He's probably I'm trying to think about it now. For him versus Brown, I'd rather play Robbie Anderson for the upside. He very well could give me a 0. I think Marquise Brown has a better shot at giving me a 0. I think I'd rather play Robbie Anderson, but that puts you in about the same ballpark on where I stand and where I feel about those two guys. But as a whole, I think you can avoid the Jets offense. I don't think there's anybody you need to start. And the Ravens guys, it was those 3 guys, which I think you can start with confidence, assuming everyone is healthy and active. And let's pick it. I'm taking the Baltimore Ravens. I don't know if they cover, depending on what the line is there for 15.5 point favorites, but I do think they win this game. Plenty of points here for the Ravens and for fantasy owners of those guys. So that's obviously huge for us guys as we're in the playoffs. So congrats. If you're in the playoffs, you guys are killing it. Make us proud. If you have questions, send them in. We will get to them before the Thursday night game. The preview will also be out Friday and Saturday for you guys, so we're also going to be taking those questions, making sure you are ready for the fantasy football goodness. We're going to take a quick break, guys, and then I'm going to come back. We're going to hit the injury report, and from there we will get you guys ready for some Thursday night football.
Have you thought about trying sports betting but aren't sure how it'll go? Our friends at FanDuel are giving away a $50 sign-up bonus at letstalkfantasyfootball.com/FanDuel-sportsbook.
All right, guys, we are back with the Thursday night preview. Jets, Ravens in the bag. That means we have a quick hit on some injury news. Did we really need a break? Nope, I needed one. And since we're here ready to recoup, and we hope you guys are playing some DFS with us. Get your questions in, guys. We want to be part of the journey. We've been with you this far. Let's help get you over the hump. Hopefully a fantasy championship awaits every single one of you. Guys, Raiders running back Josh Jacobs. His MRI came back clean. We're unsure if he's going to go in week 15. Ian Rappaport reports, look at that rolls right off the tongue. Josh Jacobs is expected to play, but John Gruden didn't guarantee it. He says we'll see what happens in the next couple of days. It doesn't mean he's going to play, but I'm glad the reports are positive. So, we'll see. He didn't play in week 14, but when he has played, guys, he has been a workhorse. If he plays, you're pumped. He's playing Jacksonville. That defense is just kind of letting loose at that point, and by that I mean they're giving up a bunch of fantasy points. Will Fuller, guys, hamstring injury remains sidelined at practice on Wednesday. He was expected to play last week. Bunch of limited practices, did not play. He gets the Titans this week in a big divisional matchup. As far as I'm concerned, he's outside the flex play. You just can't trust him. Boomer bust guy, but you know that, and you know what you're getting with him. Juju Smith-Schuster, guys, knee injury. James Conner were both full participants in Wednesday's practice. So that is a great thing. The first time for both these guys since week 11. So if they are healthy and if they do go, obviously you're excited to see Juju and James Conner back into some fantasy relevance. Unfortunately, they get the Buffalo Bills, putting Juju back in there against the Buffalo secondary with Devlin Hodges at the helm is not exactly where you are hoping to be, but unfortunately it is what it is. Conner probably leads the way with Jalen Samuels, unlikely to play. So keep your eyes. We'll touch on that more in the preview, guys, but something to keep your eyes on and see. Devontae Freeman with a knee injury was sidelined during Wednesday's practice. He expected to play against San Francisco this week. He's probably a high running back 3, low running back 2. Tough matchup. He does get banged up. His receiving usage is helpful, but again, the 49ers mean business. Not something we like to play with. Derrick Henry, guys, hamstring injury was sidelined for Wednesday's practice, which they say is part of his maintenance plan. We will see what happens. You got to keep an eye on him, guys. He didn't have a carry in the fourth quarter. Not great, but again, it's Thursday, so we still have a little bit of time to go to see how that really pans out for you guys. But monitor. We would expect Deion Lewis to pick up the slack there if that stays the case. And we'll see where it goes. David Njoku, guys, knee injury, limited participant in practice on Wednesday. I hate to say he's an interesting stream option because the Cardinals are super, super bad at defending the tight end, but we haven't seen anything from Njoku, so I don't think you can have any confidence. But an interesting name if you want to roll a dice. I wouldn't do it if we were in the playoffs, but if you're in a consolation bracket, maybe a nice little boost, maybe a little DFS play. I don't even know his price. Probably super cheap. Eli Manning expected to start Week 15 against the Dolphins. Could be a nice going-away gift for Eli as he fades off into the sunset. This is really his shot here against the Dolphins to make things right and end it that way. And Mike Evans, guys, according to Ian Rappaport, with his hamstring injury is out for this season. So that is pretty much going to do it as far as we know here going into the Thursday games. Obviously, more news will break. You'll have better updates as we see what unfolds on Thursday. So we'll push out updates as we see them, guys. But it's playoff time. We hope you guys are in the playoffs. If you're not, still win those consolation games, guys. They matter. Do not just throw them away. Most leagues do care about them for your draft picks next year, and they are important. So think about the future. Think about dynasty picks. Think about where everything falls. And it's crazy to say that we're here, guys, December 12th, 2019. But here we are. It is fantasy football goodness, and we couldn't be more excited to have been part of the journey with you guys. Let's go win some championships, get those questions in there, and we'll be standing tall and proud right alongside you guys. So for Let's Talk Fantasy Football, guys, I am Nick Schreck. We will catch you on the flip side.
This has been Let's Talk Fantasy Football. Thanks for listening.